What's up, kids? Today is the day of love. I have been working on a video for a very long time. It has been my favorite movies of 2021. I've been working like tirelessly on that thing, and it's very, very long. It's probably going to be over an hour long, so I'm going to release the full like hour-long version, and then I'm gonna have to trim it down and make like a smaller, more accessible version for the people that don't really want to watch. It's already like 20 minutes long, and I still have like 20 more movies to talk about. That's been a pain, but I had to take a break from that so I can make this, because I saw, hey, February 14th's coming up, and last year I wanted to do a video on this, because weirdly enough, the romance genre is one that, obviously, I don't really gravitate towards films like this. It's also kind of weird that some of my favorite films of all time happen to be coming from this genre, so I don't know if it says something about me, like I'm a softie or something, or that there's some films from this genre that are actually really freaking good. So we've got to narrow it down, cut down the meat, get rid of all of those dumb little rom-coms, and find the true good stuff, the true gems, you might say. First, I have to go through a couple of honorable mentions. I want to go through a couple of guilty pleasures. These aren't films that I necessarily think are very good films. First one is The Notebook. I think this one is really stupid, very corny, and it follows every typical trope that you'd come to expect, but I really just appreciate how the film just kind of nails the aesthetic of a classic romance film. When I think of a classical romantic piece about two people meeting, this is like the time period I usually envision it in. You know, it is really corny, but it relishes in kind of that absurdness of it all. So if you've seen the film, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's dumb, but it's fun, and I enjoy it for exactly what it is. The next one is Serendipity, classic rom-com for a reason. It follows every typical trope that you'd come to expect. Meeting in New York, it's all snowing for some reason. There's always a scene where two people are talking on a plane. There's always some sort of racial stereotype. Despite all of those very dated aspects of it, the thing I get the most ironic enjoyment out of is if you took this very fluffy, kind-hearted tone out of it, what you would get is something really creepy and disturbing, which I find very hilarious. Kate Beckinsale and John Cusack, these people would be complete psychopaths, but I think what makes them more of psychopaths is like 5 years later, they're still thinking about each other. That's also why I have ironic enjoyment from it. It's just really stupid. Next one is Yesterday. The two main leads in this just emanate so much charisma and so much likability. The film itself is very bizarre, and from Danny Boyle, who is a very good director, this is somehow just very poorly made, which is like very strange because it is Danny Boyle. He's a legend for a reason, but I like the two main leads. I think they're very cute, and they have some cute little interactions. It's a very sweet, wholesome little movie. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't care. The next one is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is the one where Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt first fell in love. That's really what it's known for, but the film itself I think is just incredibly fun. This is probably my number one guilty pleasure. There's one part where Brad Pitt jumps on top of a car, and he's like, honey, you are overreacting.
Jake, stop the car! Now! You're overreacting!
They just basically downplay every situation within the dialogue, but everything they're doing is so exaggerated and over the top. And for me, that's just like comedy at its peak. The other one is Palm Springs. This is more getting out of the guilty pleasures territory because I think this film is actually genuinely good in a lot of areas. It's just overall a really enjoyable film that actually explores the topic that it's going through, unlike something like Yesterday, which has a lot of plot holes, like I said. Well, the film never takes itself too seriously. I think that's why it works so perfectly well. For me, this was like one of my favorite films that came out of 2020. It was the most enjoyable thing that I saw. Next one is the film that Palm Springs was based off of. That was Groundhog Day, directed by Harold Ramis. And the main romance is something that you don't think will work out at first, but then it just does. They somehow really bring some real authenticity out of it, and I think that's what makes it just one of the most perfect comedies out there. Moonlight, directed by Barry Jenkins. I wouldn't exactly consider a romance, but it does have, in the third act especially, that's really where kind of the romantic center starts to bloom a little bit. This is really a film about self-love. It's about self-acceptance. Chiron is a character that is struggling with his own identity as a gay man who's really trying to come to terms with really where his place is in the world. It's a very renowned film for a reason. I am so glad it won Best Picture. It really means a lot to a lot of people, and the fact that I related to it so strongly, despite not even being gay, really did shock me. I was very surprised how much I actually resonated with the film overall. The third act, where Chiron is meeting up with an old friend, and they're just having there's a lot of I guess romantic tension going on and boiling underneath everything, really makes it a very investing third act. But I really love the ending, that final shot where they're just embracing and holding each other. It's a very beautiful moment, very poetic even. To me, I think that makes the whole watch worthwhile. Casablanca, this is obviously a classic, but I haven't seen it in a few years, so I'm not going to put it in the top 10, but I do appreciate it a lot. I think it's a very well-written film, and it has one of the best endings of all time, undoubtedly. So now let's get into the top 10. I think out of all of these, Titanic has the most generic romance. Like I said with The Notebook, it really does a lot of things The Notebook does in regards to that period piece aesthetic, and casting two attractive people in the lead roles, and they just kind of naturally have this sexual chemistry going on, but there's not much of a core center to it, you know what I mean? But really what makes Titanic enjoyable overall is that setting and the intensity going on there. Is that they meet in a few days, but you actually do get invested in this relationship. And so when you see this ship sinking and you see that this relationship may come to an end, it's a life or death thing. It's very dramatic. You actually do get invested in their headspaces, and you actually do start to care. Where is this gonna end? How is this gonna come to a conclusion? Just the film overall, it's one of the more enjoyable 3-hour films I've seen. It just has a really nice, smooth pacing. So I wanted to include that. So that is at number 10. Her is, I think, one of the most unconventional love stories of all time. It takes place in the future, and Joaquin Phoenix is lonely, basically needs a new companion. So he falls in love with this AI intelligence named Samantha, voiced by Scarlett Johansson. And I think this may be Scarlett Johansson's best performance, and she's not even on screen. So I really do love how this film is able to pull you in to this very absurd relationship. On paper, it's just so weird to think about a guy falling in love with the computer, but it's really the conversations they have that feel so real, and the chemistry this voice actor has with this actor that's portrayed on screen actually being able to gain a connection, have good, palpable chemistry. It's very, very strange and weird. I think a lot of it comes from Spike Jonze's direction. The man makes some of the more original films that you've seen. He really can bring a whole new level of authenticity to the absurd and really bring something new and real. I think really where I kind of resonate with this is that aspect of loneliness, just that kind of wellowing despair going on inside, and you really see that in Joaquin Phoenix's brilliant performance. You just can tell that this guy's been through a lot. He's had a really tough life, a personal story, a very personal journey about a guy really finding himself, and the romance is kind of something where you really see that he's just desperate for anything, any kind of attachment. It's kind of a commentary on the world and how we interact and how we make connections with other people. Jerry Maguire, I think, is just one of the sweetest little films I've ever seen. Cameron Crowe just makes really naturally corny movies, but I think just the way he approaches everything just works for me personally. The story here about a guy kind of losing his self-esteem really through his career and not knowing what to do, and eventually finding someone who does care about him, and kind of that journey that they go on together is just very sweet. I don't really have much else to say about this besides Tom Cruise is just really sexy in this. This one scene where he's singing Free Falling in the car at the top of his lungs, I mean, you cannot help but smile during that moment. It is so perfect. I love Before Midnight. This is where we're in our favorites territory. These are all in my top 100 of all time. Before Midnight is, I think, one of those films that's really grown on me over time, because the first time I saw this, if you didn't know this, I didn't like this film very much. I feel like in some ways it kind of retconned the first two in a way, where it took these characters you really like and it really made them a little more detestable. I didn't really care about them as much in here. And so that, to me, the first time I saw it, it just didn't really resonate with me too much because it didn't contain that joyful energy. Romance has its ups and downs, and this film is mostly about the downs. It's about those flaws. It's about the complications and the problems that can arise from relationships and marriages especially. This connects with me on a very deep level now. It gives me a little more of this cynical view on what relationships and marriages can eventually turn into. I can really learn a lot from that, and I think you can too. I mean, it's La La Land. What can you say about it? It has a lot of really beautiful, profound moments. But what I love so much is kind of that fantastical feeling, that very colorful fluidity going on, where you just can get so immersed and wrapped up in the characters and their lives. You just see so much beauty. It's a really Hollywood-esque movie. But then as the film goes along, you see the layers start to peel back. You see more of that reality start to poke through. At that point, you're just left with a really depressing ending. But it's all told mostly through visuals, which I really like. This is a very visual film. It tells a lot of stories just through its cinematography and its colors. You see two people that are dreamers and they really want to do something. And to all of us, we all dream. We all have those ideas in our head, those passions. Seeing them have to approach those dreams in different ways, and they have to cost the love for each other, is both inspiring and very depressing. You're gonna do one thing, but you're gonna have to get rid of another thing to be able to achieve that. And I don't know, I think the film holds up so well to this day because of those messages it's tackling, and I love it for that reason. About Time, to me, is such a simple premise. It's aggressively simple. It just brings the beauty, the joy from life. That cynicism just kind of washes away. The film doesn't have any major conflicts. It doesn't have anything that's going to stress me out. It's just about a guy who has the ability to go back in time and make differences in his life. In a way, the main character is kind of perfect. And, you know, to me, I could be like, yeah, that's a problem, because that kind of contradicts what I said before. I said that I really do like when characters are more flawed because it makes them more tangible, more relatable. You can really identify with them. But here, I feel this less of something that's relatable and something that just more acts as something to, I guess, live up to. It sets an example, and it's like, hey, maybe you could be that person one day. And personally, I really love the approach to this story. The guy doesn't make any of these crazy mistakes. It's not like I'm watching like After Hours or something where the dude's just making the same mistake continuously. Always seems to find the right way out of a situation, and like I said, that could distance ourselves from them. There's something really beautiful about it. And when it comes to the romance here, it's just so freaking sweet. And you could say they don't have that many arguments. Well, they don't, because the guy can make changes anytime that he wants. Yeah, you could say, yeah, maybe he's not dealing with problems the right way that he should deal with problems, but I don't know. I don't care. This movie is just so dang sweet, and I don't care what any of these problems are. I don't know. I just adore this movie. It's so perfect. Perfect little slice of life flick with a fantastical edge to it, which really makes it all the more exciting to me. Yeah, now we're in like top 20 of all time territory. So Before Sunrise is one that I will always hold near and dear to my heart. The concept is really simple. It's just about a dude meets a girl on a train, they get off the train, they talk, and then they leave, and that's it. That's the whole movie. It's just them walking around Vienna in one night and talking. But there's a real beauty to the conversations they have. That's what I love so much about Linklater's writing. Every time they speak, you always kind of have your mind branch out to some alternative film. You see so many movies just playing in your head while they're talking because the dialogue is just so vivid. You can really imagine what they're saying. And really, you're just watching two people talk. It's so simple. It is so freeing. It is so relaxing. You see that juxtaposed with the dialogue that has a lot of stressful things in it. You see them being like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what my future holds. And it's really a film about two people meeting each other and pushing each other in different directions, nudging each other into different headspaces maybe. When Harry Met Sally, I think affected me very deeply because on the outside it was just a normal, dumb little rom-com. Guy meets girl and guy chases girl down in an airport at the end of the movie. And they all have the same plot. I mean, rom-coms are known for being the most formulaic, manipulative pieces of Hollywood entertainment there are. I was really shocked to see how the dialogue and the conversations that were going on actually were much darker than you'd expect. Something that I can compare this to with Before Sunrise, in that Sally is a little more optimistic. She's a little more hopeful about the world around her. It seems Harry has already given up. He's just so cynical. He's got just a very depressed kind of attitude about everything, yet he just kind of does things. He doesn't really live. And when you see him meet this girl that's so optimistic, naive, you see that kind of soften him up a little bit. And you see his influence on Sally. He brings her down to reality a little more. He's like, no, this is a real thing. You need to stop living in your fantasy world. Kind of how this balances them out to be on more of the same level is a very interesting dynamic. This film kind of started the trend. Every rom-com trope you've ever thought of, it really stemmed from this. It's so funny to me how this kind of started the trend, but no film has ever surpassed it. It's like every movie tried to copy off of When Harry Met Sally, but could never quite reach it. This film is just perfect to me. It's funny, it's kind of sad. It just has every element. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was written by Charlie Kaufman, who is, I think, my favorite screenwriter. Every character has a very unique way of speaking, and his concepts are just very bizarre, but it's all kind of brought to reality. You can kind of relate to all of these bizarre situations because the circumstances, I guess. This film is mostly all a dream sequence, which we've all had, just crazy wild dreams. So the way it actually brings dreams to life with its crazy visual effects and cinematic magic going on, you really think you're watching a dream come to life. The effects hold up so well. You see this girl getting erased from his mind, and he really wants to save her in his mind, and he's trying to find her and chase after her and be like, no, I don't want to lose you, while at the same time you're seeing him reminisce about his past, his childhood, his relationship with this girl. You basically see like a whole montage play out of this relationship, which makes it very personal, but it doesn't feel like it's brushing over anything because it's presented in this dream sequence. It doesn't feel like you're rushing the relationship or anything. It just shows you're seeing the relationship presented in a very visceral way. The romance here is just so beautiful because you just see two people that are lonely and deal with a lot of problems within their own personal life. There's a lot of moments where you see the real dark side of relationships and you see these problems arise. But you also see the sweet moments. You see everything. It's just freaking poetic, and I love it for that. Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of those top 5 favorites. I love it so much. Yeah, I mean, it's Before Sunset, baby. I like to say that Before Sunset is my favorite movie, but it kind of changes a lot. So for now, where I'm at in my life, I say that Before Sunset is my favorite film. A lot of why this works for me is because of its simplicity. It's just two people who haven't seen each other in a really long time, seeing each other again, meeting each other again, regaining a connection, and it starts out a little bit awkward. They're like, oh man, we haven't seen each other in a long time, but once you see that conversation just start going, you really see those dots connect again. You really see them, this like very intimate personal connection just completely click all at once. To me, this is a perfect film. I think there's nothing wrong with it. The dialogue here, I think, is the best out of the entire trilogy because it's, I think, where it gets to its most imaginative. You can really sense what's going on. Like a couple of seconds talking about like their parents or something, and then in your head you can imagine their parents' entire lives playing out in your head. For me, this is really epic in a very different sense. It's not really visuals, it's just in its words and what it's conveying. There's a lot coming out and rising from that script. You can really see a lot of what's happening in your own mind. So you feel like you've experienced multiple lives, and the characters feel so well formed. They really feel like real people, and I feel like I could talk to them. And to me, just getting lost in a movie is one of the best things a filmmaker can accomplish. It really is a beautiful, beautiful story. And to me, this is just a film that will always resonate and connect with me very deeply, and I think it's going to hit even harder when I'm an adult, when I've actually gone through these problems within my own life. So yeah, Before Sunset is perfect. It's probably my favorite film, and it's my favorite romance film of all time. So thank you so much for watching me just kind of blabber on about random stuff. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Hope you're having a great time, and I will see you in the next one, which will probably be my 2021 video that I was talking about before. I love you all so much. So yeah, this is Ethan Butler, and I'm out.